Arise!
Welcome to this Season 9 Complete Azir Guide. I'm Zeus, and I've tried to cover everything possible, including plenty of in-game footage using details from the best players and servers. There's timestamps in the description below if you're interested in a specific section, but I would recommend watching it all as there are important tips throughout. Use this video as a reference by saving it or adding it to a playlist so you can constantly come back whenever it's convenient. If you're planning on trying Azir soon, hit that like button so I can see just how many of you are interested. Ever since the release of Azir, I found him to be one of the most rewarding champs to play. His unique playstyle requires consistent focus on the position of his soldiers, allowing for optimal damage and combos with his other abilities. This unique playstyle can take many games to feel consistent and smooth. It can sometimes feel like I'm playing two champs at once, switching between a long-range poke mage with burst and a high attack speed damage overtime carry that goes in deep. With the ability to make soldiers, walls and towers, and Shurima shuffle entire enemy teams, Azir is one of the hardest champs to master, especially in a meta that isn't forgiving early on. Before we jump into the main content, let's quickly go over the abilities. His W creates soldiers which count as an auto attack and deal AoE damage to enemies within range. It also grants attack speed, which is doubled if you have 3 soldiers summoned. His Q is an AoE mid to long range skill shot, which requires at least 1 soldier to be activated. It applies a 1-second slow and repositions his soldiers to the target location. His E is a dash, which can only be used towards a soldier. It provides a shield and stops if it hits an enemy champ. Hitting an enemy champ also grants 1 soldier charge. His ult is a wall which damages, knocks up and displaces enemies towards the target location. His passive allows him to resurrect any fallen tower outside the enemy base. They pretty much act as normal towers except they gain 15% AP and lose 100 armor if Azir is too far away. There are a couple of different major runes to take depending on the situation. I've looked through the top pro players and regions like Korea and EU West and tested them myself. Here are the top 4 rune pages. Electrocute is probably the most consistent rune. Great for early pressure and trades. Pick it against champs that consistently allow you to proc this rune, especially melee champs that need to be dealt with early before they become a threat later on. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter work well together for that lane sustain. Eyeball Collection and Ghost Poro are both viable. If you feel safe walking through the river, take Ghost Poro and place the Poro aggressively, preferably in the enemy jungle. Mana Flow Band helps with Azir's slight mana problem early on. It will come down to how accurate you are with your Q and W autos to make sure all your mana consumption is used for dealing damage. Last rune is Absolute Focus. Staying above 70% HP is relatively easy on Azir unless you're going against heavy poke like Xerath, so 90% of situations you'll get the extra AP from this rune. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter synergize well with this rune, helping you stay above 70%. The next most consistent major rune is Arcane Comment. Main reason to take this rune is for poke gameplay. When you won't be able to get consistent procs of Electrocute, the long range poke of Azir makes the damage from Comment efficient. Look for Q pokes in lane whenever this is up. Since your Q applies a slow, it makes for consistent damage from Comment. Mana Flow and Absolute Focus are again the most optimal, with Scorch as the 3rd rune. The extra damage you get from your Q poke plus auto will help Azir maintain lane dominance early on. Gathering Storm is viable if there is a good chance you will have a late game, something extremely rare in this current meta. The second path is flexible. From Precision Page, you can take Legend Alacrity for additional attack speed and Coup de Grace for extra damage on low HP targets. Another popular and just as consistent rune page is the same Taste and Blood Ravenous Hunter synergy from Domination. Go with what feels best for you. If you need to pressure your advantage, go Precision. Do you need Sustain? Go Domination and get that second path to maintain your HP. The third most popular major rune is Lethal Tempo. This is a potential game changer for Azir if you're able to hit a target for enough time. If you have a team heavy on CC or the enemy team has plenty of immobile or tanky champs, this rune is optimal. The attack speed steroid coupled with your soldiers' damage is insane. Triumph, Alacrity and Coup de Grace for the other 3 runes. The second path is flexible between Domination and Sorcery. The Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter combo is good for that HP sustain once again, and Mana Flow Ring and Absolute Focus combo for that extra mana and damage. You can even take Mana Ring and Transcendence. I will go over Transcendence further in builds, as Nash's Tooth plus Ludens and Zhonya's can make use of the extra CDR for potential extra damage. I wish I could definitively say which is the best rune, but it's so close. Even if you compare every pro player, the results are inconsistent. This is one of those times where it's best for you to try yourself and perhaps make the final judgment. Situation-based choices are highly recommended. The final popular major rune that is worth mentioning is Summon Aerie. It's great for consistent damage. If you're close in most fights, then this can be the most optimal for damage. Since Aerie has to travel, the closer you are in combat, the more Aerie procs. Something to consider, but not as consistent as the other runes. Unlike Comment, it can't be dodged. This rune can be substituted into any of the arcane comment pages. Extremely situational runes. For more HP sustain, take Second Path Inspiration, Cookie with Cosmic Insight, Minion Dematerializer, or Stopwatch. Cut down subbed for Coup de Grace against 3 or more tanks. Of course, no matter what, every situation is unique. I've just tried to outline 99% of situation, so pick accordingly. The best and most consistent start in most matchups is Doran's Ring plus 2 health pots, HP plus mana plus AP. Everything Azir needs. Darkseal is good for a first back if extra mana is needed, although rushing your major item is priority. First major and popular buy is Nash's Tooth. It provides AP, attack speed, CDR, and a percentage of your AP is converted to autos. It contains everything Azir needs to become a major threat. If you want to go Nash's first, I would advise taking Mana Flow Band, as mana can be an issue. The other major first buy is Luden's Echo. Great build path, especially Lost Chapter for the mana sustain early on. I found myself buying this item more, and specifically when I needed to poke and pressure my enemy laner. The mana lets you spam Q plus W way more than an early Stinger if you're going for the Nash's build. Here's my take on whether to get Ludens or Nash's first. If you take Electrocute or Lethal Tempo, take Nash's as your first item. I would advise taking Mana Flow Band, otherwise you'll quickly go trying to clear waves and poke your laner. If you go Arcane Comment, Ludens seems better for the poke playstyle. There are a few exceptions. If you have mobile enemies like Nid Jungle and Zed mid for example, take Electrocute is fine for the easy proc on Zed in lane. Rushing Ludens is also fine. Mobile champs are much harder to get autos off, since they can move out of your soldier range, making attack speed useless most of the times. Hence, I would recommend early Ludens for more burst with Electrocute or Lethal Tempo. Here your Q plays a bigger role, since most of your poke damage will come from it. I want to reiterate once more, no matter what the circumstance, I've tried to cover 99% of situations, so use your best judgment for your choices, or simply follow one of these paths that sounds best for you. I've looked over not only the best solo queue players, but also pro players. Azir is in a unique state, where only experienced Azir players can make him work consistently, so choosing the right rune page and item build will come naturally with games under your belt. Sorks for 90% of situations for second buy. Movement and Magic Pen. Azir will make use of this Magic Pen every auto. Ninja Tabais for 3 to 5 AD enemy champs. Although this is rare, it may happen. Mercs might be necessary against big AP threats like LeBlanc, Syndra or Ahri, maybe even Xerath. Combined with their burst and CC, they have potential to one-shot you. I'll quickly mention Berserker Graves since this has been picked up a few times. If you find yourself needing attack speed, these are an option. Azir already has a lot of built-in attack speed, plus Nash's Tooth, and the potential to have 3 soldiers attack speed steroid, so you'll have more than enough attack speed in my opinion. Morelos can be purchased either after Nash's or Ludens, or after you buy both. A cost-effective item at the moment with a useful passive against healing or any life generation enemy champs, especially tanks. The Magic Pen synergizes really well with his soldiers' autos. The next items are situational. Zhonya's against enemy teams that have potential to burst you. If you want to make plays, this item is perfect for that as well. Going for a streamer shuffle into the enemy team will require you to go into a vulnerable position, so hit Zhonya's right after that combo and wait for your team to back you up. Great to counter burst in general, especially AD threats like Zed and Talon. Stopwatch should be bought earlier if you feel it would save you during an important time of the game. Rabadon's death cap is the best choice if you're ahead and want to snowball, or you don't have any major threats for Zhonya's to be a priority. With a completed death cap, your soldiers will hit like a truck. You've truly reached Ascension with this item, dealing disgusting damage from your long range, and potential to wipe out any squishies in your way. Void Staff right after Morello's is viable if the enemy starts stacking MR, but generally you want to build this last, since the two previous items hold more importance. Sometimes I like to get a Dark Seal early and find myself ahead, so Mage Eyes is a great option. Great item to snowball, a Zhonya's early would help keep your stacks in case you find yourself out of position in fights. Banshees might be viable if you have some CC threat that can pick you out. This item can literally save your game, so pick it against threats like Pyke, Syndra, Elise, Blitz, Thresh that have potential to pick you out. Liandry's can be viable against extra tanky enemy team comps. Your soldiers apply this passive every time you auto. Rylo's is another option. Although your Q already has a slow, you can proc Rylo's with a soldier auto, helping you kite against certain enemy champs, preferably against champs that use speed to catch you, not dashes or blinks. For summoner spells, I would highly recommend if you are D4 and below to take Ignite. An aggressive spell, Ignite, gives you the lane pressure you need to pick up kills on your laner and even the enemy jungler in those early 2v2 skirmishes. Defensive summoners are great, but in a meta where early game seems to make or break Azir, it's important you take initiative to snowball your lead. I cannot count the amount of missed kills because I decided to take a defensive summoner. Of course, once you're in an elo where it is much more consistent in terms of skills and game knowledge, you'll need to take defensive summoners accordingly. The first main and popular defensive summoner is Heal. Heals you for a small amount, which is great for surviving when you go in deep as Azir. The movement speed and the potential to heal another teammate makes it slightly better than Barrier. Barrier is another great defensive summoner, usually taken against high burst champs like Syndra. It's able to absorb slightly more damage than Heal and is resistant to grievous wounds, especially from Ignite early on. Exhaust is great against champs that burst up close like Zed, Talon, Yasuo, but ever since the nerfs it's been less favorable in most situations. Cleanse against long range CC that has potential to follow up with lots of damage. Lissandre CC with a dangerous jungler, Syndra, Ahri, and gank threats like Elise and Sejuani. Since you have plenty long range and dash and peel with your ult, only take Cleanse if the enemy mid and jung has serious CC combo threat, since I feel Heal and Barrier are still priority. Before I go over some general Azir tips that will help you gain an advantage, here are some quick guidelines to help you pick the best setup. If the enemies are immobile, tanky or short range, Lethal Tempo plus Nash's into Morello's is a great damage over time build. If enemies are mobile, squishy, long range, Arcane Comment plus Luden's Rush will deal great burst damage in a quick poke. If you're up against melee, mid, short range in lane, you want to apply pressure consistently, as well as have the mana to do it, Electrocute plus Luden's Rush is best. If teamfights are fast and full of squishies, go burst and look for those sick Azir plays, aiming to sweep as many with your ult. If teamfights are slow paced with constant kiting and positioning, go for a damage over time build. I will go over further details in matchups, but this will give you a general guideline in most situations that helps you decide what's best. Now let's go over some general tips to gain a small advantage. When you ult a champ, try to save at least one soldier, so then you can place right on top of that enemy as is pushed away, or at least try to push them onto existing soldiers. Careful backing with your soldiers up since they will reveal you. Try to get out of range so your soldiers deactivate. Use your towers for sieging.